It's Tuesday, June 10th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Father's Day weekend is coming, folks. So for many of you gardeners out there, it is grow time. Get the stuff in the ground. It is gardening day. Dan Rubin is on deck for your grow questions. So, folks, you know the drill, and if you don't, if you're a first-time listener to Gardening Day here on The Signal, the numbers to call, right, if you want some tips for gardening for the grow season, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. You can text us, 709-327-8206. Emails thesignal@cbc.ca. My guest, Dan Rubin, author, Sun, Seed, and Soil, Tips and Techniques for a Northern Garden. But there's much more to you than just that book, although it's a great book. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, look, thank you for coming in. I know I mentioned Father's Day and time to get the stuff in the ground. For kicking stuff off, though, I always appreciate the fact that when we chat, as my microphone moves out of my way, when we chat, your message about just informing folks how much we can grow, the variety, the length that we can grow. And so there's the beginner's conversation of dipping your toe in and as you build up. And then there's the, hold on now, let's expand the season, get different things in there. How's the grow season going for you so far, sir?
May was crappy, but June is much better.
Yeah.
I've been out in my garden just in the last couple of days planting squash under remake cloth, putting tomatoes in the tomato house, planting basil and cucumbers in the greenhouse. It's looking very hopeful.
Very hopeful.
Yeah.
I like hopeful. Hopeful's nice.
And you're absolutely right that when we did our survey, the Where's the Food survey in 2022, we found 742 people who had produced 6.2 million pounds of food. And not to boast, but I really like telling people that I grow peaches and grapes and kiwis and artichokes because there's this concept that you can't grow food here. It's too wet and cold and windy and rocky, and none of that is true. That's a really bad bedtime story with things hiding under bridges. We don't need that story anymore.
It's like we can do it. Like I find sometimes it's
we are already doing it.
Sorry, we are already doing it, and we can do more, right? And for the folks who don't know, the message is yes, we can because we are. Right?
And the really cool thing for me as a backyard gardener, and for all you backyard gardeners out there, is that we always produce a surplus. And that surplus can be shared in the form of food, in the form of seeds, in the form of plants. And it really becomes a community connector.
Right. What's your, flavor-wise? Because I just heard I heard tomatoes from you.
Yeah.
I heard cucumbers there. I heard basil.
Yeah.
What, your flavors for summer? What's the first, oh yes, we're here. We're in the grow season. We're producing. This is the first bit, the taste of the early success.
Well, my harvest year starts in March, and it starts with the perennials that come up early, like the walking onions and the kale that is overwintered, and the greens like lettuce that I planted even a month earlier indoors that are under a lid in a raised bed. But by now, I'm starting to salivate thinking about tomatoes and cucumbers, and those will be here in a month or two. But meanwhile, there's so much that's already growing. My garlic is 1.5 feet tall.
Yes, bye.
And I have some of the Newfoundland tall garlic, which will go to 3 feet by the time it sets the curlies at the top, the scapes.
What do you do with your scapes, by the way?
Oh, my God, I pickle them.
Yeah.
I cut them into lengths and I put them in a pickle jar and pickle them, quick pickles. But sautéed with a little bit of olive oil and sea salt and balsamic vinegar, they are out of this world.
That's great.
They're like garlicky asparagus. They're wonderful. We've had our first 2 harvests of asparagus. We've eaten those.
Congrats.
Yeah. And the rhubarb is coming on, and I will be making hundreds of bottles of wine from rhubarb and black currants. The cherry tree was massively covered in blossoms, and we watched all these beautiful honeybees pollinating it. So if I can keep the starlings away with netting, we'll actually hopefully get some cherries this year. But the cherries and the plums and the pear and the apples, they're all coming into blossom. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I was running a couple days ago over near. I did Kent's and Kenny's ponds, right? So we did, let me see, this would have been Kenny's pond. And there's a little park, and there's some blossom trees, and some of the blossoms were on the ground. And it was just one of these beautiful spring feeling pictures, right? You're running through, the air is great, you've got blossoms there, and it's one of those times when you're feeling alive, it's all there for you because you're just wowed by nature and what's your surroundings as you're kind of one foot in front of the other and out for a bit of a jaunt, right?
For the past 3 or 4 years, I've been based with Food Producers Forum at the Mercy Center for Ecology and Justice, started by a wonderful nun named Sister Mary T. And we've been carrying on the tradition that she started there of gardening and educating. And the spirit of that place is that it's about reconnecting ourselves with the wonder of the living world.
There you go.
The fact that we're here at all after millions of years of evolution is a wonder in itself. And then you connect that to the soil and the food, and it's real.
Whenever I travel, and also when I've lived in other places, there's something I like touching the soil in a different place just to feel how it's it's different, right? It's different in different places. But there's also similarities, because dirt is dirt, but also just thinking of the history of it and the terroir of the place is really something.
As the winemakers say, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the soil of a place, and the interesting thing here is we live in it is a rocky, cold place, but we can build soil. We have the materials for that in the sea and on the land, and I've changed my whole garden, all 25 raised beds, to regenerative permaculture, which means that I don't dig in them anymore. I layer on top. And across the road from where we live in Pooch Cove, there was a crew of people mowing an enormous lawn. And so I sidled up to the boss who was doing the work. He was smoking and watching the young guys run the mowers. And I said, do you think I could have your grass clippings? Yeah. And so I got to mulch all of my beds, cool. half of my beds with fresh grass clippings.
There you go.
So it is wonderful what we're able to do and what we're learning. See, because I'm not really an expert. People call me that, and I go, come on. I'm just a crazy guy who moved here from the Gulf Islands of BC 23 years ago and went, oh, my God, how do I grow food?
Yeah. And
I've been learning as I go.
All right. Well, and this is hence why you're in the seat. We've got a couple calls to get to and an email. So, folks, now that
wonderful.
Being said, there's room in the queue, right? 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Texts 709-327-8206. Emails thesignal@cbc.ca. I'm Adam Walsh. Dan Rubin is here with me. Bruce Parsons is on the line from Paradise. Hey, Bruce, how you doing?
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. I have a question, actually a few questions, but one primarily. A few years ago, I had one of these bell mulchers for, mulching up trees that I were cutting around the garden. Apple trees better. I spread those on my garden. But in the interim, I had a fairly tall group of, I suppose you call it Japanese knotweed. It originally came from Marystown, and from prior to Marystown, it came from Nova Scotia. It grows about 10 to 12 feet tall, maybe an inch and a half or, an inch and 3/4 in diameter in the bottom. So that was as dry as a chip, and I just put that in the mulcher and put it on the ground. And my first question is that any good for the soil?
Definitely anything that's organic and growing, particularly weeds and persistent plants like nettle and knotweed and others, even the invasive plants like knotweed, are putting good nutrients into the soil. And that's the same thing as for maple leaves. I'm a big fan of maple leaves, composting those. That's what they use to make the beautiful soil at the botanical garden. I recently bought a large-scale chipper for my own garden. It's a very very handy thing to have because the wood chips, the chopped up knotweed, provided you can get it fine enough that it's basically not going to grow, will rot down and then feed your plants. It's an essential thing to do along with composting.
Yeah. Well, I let it dry first. I wait to the end of the season, and it's dry like a piece of bamboo, and I just runs it through the chipper, and of course it comes out pretty good.
Perfect.
So I'll continue to do that. This particular type of Japanese knotweed is not like what we used to call bean shooters when we were youngsters. You'd see growing on the side of the road or the bottom of people. There's not the same thing at all. It's like I say, up to 12 feet tall.
Oh, yeah.
And I brought it from Marystown back in probably 85, and it hasn't spread very, very much. It continues to stay. It's not the same as the other stuff. If you put that in your garden, you'd have it from one end of your property to the other. No, this is not. It looks the same, but it's leaves are large and etc. I don't know. I call it Japanese knotweed. That's exactly what it looks like. Bean shooters. My second question is.
Let me just interrupt you and say that it's very, very interesting to me. As I said, I'm always learning new things. To hear that there's something that looks like Japanese knotweed, maybe a different variant that is less invasive. That's interesting. But and I will add one more thing, which is that when the new shoots come up, my good friend and partner in crime, Sean Dawson, the forager, harvests those shoots when they're less than about 9 inches tall, and he pickles them, and he also uses them for jams and chutneys like you would rhubarb stalks. Anyway, carry on with your next question.
That's an interesting. I might try that one of these days. The next question. I was at a gardener center in St. John's, and they're selling fig trees.
Yes.
Now, my question is. These people are known for bringing in stuff that will grow. In your experience, what do you think about the fig tree?
They're great for indoor growing in a greenhouse. They might survive in a very warm place if they're sheltered from the wind, but they are a semi-tropical plant, so they're not going to really like growing outdoors through a Newfoundland winter. They need some protection.
Yeah, I know. A friend of mine grows green grapes. He's up in Witless Bay, and he harvests probably 40 or 50 kilos of grapes from that. Difficult. People don't want them. Don't want it. For making wine and et cetera, et cetera. So a waste to grow it. But that's an interesting thing. I was interested in getting one plant, but I'm not interested in putting it in a hothouse and take it over to hothouse.
Does he grow it in a greenhouse or outdoors?
No, on the side of his house.
Oh, outdoors. Well, that's great because if it's surviving, and I have 5 different varieties of grapes outdoors that survive, and I do make wine out of the grapes, usually combining them with other things. It's wonderful, and you just get a cutting, and you root it, and then you're ready to plant it.
Okay, well, he's pretty astute in these matters. He originally came from Poland, and of course he knows his wine bushes. Don't worry. Well, that's great. Thanks very much for your help, and I'm looking forward to the next time you come on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bruce calling there from Paradise. So, how many different types of wine are you making?
Last year, I made 240 bottles, and it was therefore 8 batches, 3 of which were rhubarb, 2 of which were blackcurrant, 1 of which was a mixture of blackcurrant and gooseberry. I call it black goose. And then out of the sludge that remains in the bottom when you rack it off the first time, when you siphon it into a carboy, into the next carboy, I added a mixture of blackcurrant and crab apples and grapes, and I made what I call my Van Maison, my house wine, and they all came out really well. But 8 batches last year, 240 bottles. Yeah,
there you go.
It's very easy to do.
We've got Catherine Blake on the line. Hi, how you doing?
Hi, I'm not bad at all. How about yourself?
Enjoying the season.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi, how are you doing? Glad to have you here with us. I have a question. Many years ago, my father wanted to grow an apple tree. So he took seeds from an apple and he froze them, and then I guess he germinated them. Anyway, he did grow an apple tree that did produce apples. Yeah. So I have a friend who's very interested in doing the very same thing. So he has the apples, they've germinated, they've started to grow, but I'm wondering what is it he'll need to do to have the best success?
Generally speaking, I don't recommend starting apples from seed. You get a true version of the tree that they came from, but most apples that you purchase commercially are grafted, and the reason they're grafted, that fruit wood is grafted onto rootstock, is that the rootstock determines the cold tolerance of the tree and its size. So, but it sounds like you had good luck. Are the apples good, the ones that you harvest from your dad's tree? Well, then there you go. And if he or she has managed to start an apple tree from the same seed, what they're going to need to do, I think, is grow it in a container at least 9 inches across and maybe a foot deep, and then in a larger container until it's about 3 or 4 years old. And that's usually the age at which the trees go into the ground. And then the second piece of advice is to try and find a sheltered spot to plant that tree, a nice sunny spot where the predominant wind, is cut off by a building or another tree, so that in that sheltered spot the tree will grow really well. Sunny but protected from the wind. And you can often tell where these spots are because they're the places that get the least snow in your yard, right?
Right.
And then when you plant it, many people make this mistake. They dig a big hole, and it needs to be a little larger than the root ball of the tree that's in the pot.
Right.
And they'll sometimes leave it wrapped in burlap because they do that to move the trees at the places where they grow them. You need to take that rhubarb off. Not rhubarb, that burlap off. No, don't take the rhubarb off. And wash the roots. Now, you wouldn't be doing that. Your friend wouldn't be if they've already got it growing in a pot. But here's the key thing. When you dig the hole, take the soil out of the hole that you dug and save it, and don't fill the hole with really rich soil or manure or compost because it delivers a message to the tree. And the message is, your roots don't need to grow. Everything you need is right here. And I learned that from a wonderful arborist in Ontario named Stefan Sobkowiak, Sobkowiak. You can find him online. And he gave this advice that if you do that, it blocks drainage, it drowns the roots, and it gives the tree the wrong message. So what you do is you plant the tree in the hole and you fill with the same soil that came out of the hole, and you put your manure and your nutrients for the tree as top dressing around the tree. And as the tree grows, you fertilize not close to the trunk, because that's not where the little roots are. They're right below the outer edges of what's called the drip line of the tree. So as wide as the branches are, you fertilize in a fairy circle around the tree below the outermost branches. So that's my advice. But if you get good apples and the person has managed to sprout a seed, sure, go for it.
Okay. And if I still have those seeds, are they still, can I still use them, or are they no longer viable?
I'm not sure what it is. I have a book at home called Seeds of the Woody Plants of North America that will tell me the answer. I'll look it up when I get home. Most seeds, tree seeds, are good for multiple seasons, but once they dry out, then the germ in the seed will die. So it depends a lot on how you store them. If you store them, and you mentioned your dad freezing them,
yes.
Many seeds need to be scarified, like they need to be shocked in order to germinate. There's actually some pine seeds that need a fire before they can germinate because they're used to, they're adapted to places where fire moves through, fertilizes the ground, and then so in the case of apples, they need dormancy. That means cold. But if you were to put them in a sealed container in your refrigerator, they would probably last 2 or 3, 4 years. There may be somebody there that knows more precisely how long they last. And I will as soon as I get home and check that book.
Indeed.
Cool.
So really, even though that it's growing and it's probably a foot and a half high, he should leave it in the container for 2 or 3 years?
If it's a small container, it's going to need root space. So put it into a nice, big, honkin' big pot full of a mix of compost and soil and let it grow in that pot until it's 3 or 4 years old. But make sure the pot's not too small and it needs good drainage, because then the survival of that tree when you plant it out will be a lot better. You're less likely to mow it down by accident, and it's much less likely to get browsed by an animal. And then once it's, let's say, about 2 feet tall, then put it in the ground.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for the call. Great question.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the day.
Have a great
See
day.
you. You too, Catherine.
You too. Bye.
It is gardening day here on The Signal. I am Adam Walsh. Dan Rubin is here with me. If you want to call for tips or just to brag about your gardens, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Text 709-327-8206. Emails thesignal@cbc.ca. Check this out, Dan. We got an email that came in. I'm going to try to. It says, "I have a sickly-looking email. I have a sickly-looking maple tree in my backyard. Rhubarb, the word of the day. I have a sickly-looking maple tree in my backyard. It has what looks like a black ring mold at the bottom of the trunk. And there's a picture too, and it's worse than even described.
Let me sneak around there and take a look at
over.
it. I'll come back.
I'll keep reading. It also has very few leaves. The leaves that have come out are not very full. I would love to know what is happening with this tree and whether or not it is salvageable." That's from Kristen there. So here's, I saw the bottom and right, see that? Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good old case of black ring mold at the bottom of the trunk. What do you know what that is?
I don't, and there's people out there who are arborists who might recognize that, a specific condition. But I will say that's a fairly good-sized tree. It looks like it's maybe 18 inches at the base. It's a mature tree. And I would say something bad is happening to your tree. Yeah. It may be on the way out. I don't know. I would get a hold of old earth arborists and have them come take a look at it, and they could give you a reading on whether to try keep the tree or whether it's on its way out. I'm so sad. I mean, the maples are wonderful, and I have a tree that's got a whole line of huge maples that the man who built my house planted when they were tiny, and they're taller than the house now, and I love when the leaves come out at this time of year. Yeah. Sounds like you have a sick tree. It does. And I don't have any great advice for what to do with it.
Thanks for the email on that one. I had a email or a text, I should say. Folks concerned about, I believe it was spanworms. What do you do? Like this isn't central.
Spanworms are part of a cyclical thing where the things come and then the things that attack them come and they bloom, and then you got tons of them and they're icky and sticky, and then as the years go by they go away again. So there isn't a lot that you can do about them if they're really all over your trees. If there's a few of them, you can pick them up. But once they get going, you kind of have them that year, but you won't necessarily have them in great numbers the following year or 2 years later.
Okay. And, there's a text to my phone, which is a question too. So the ways to get in touch with the show, I always put out stuff, but if you also have my phone number, feel free to text me. Let me just see what this one is. When is the best time to plant carrots to avoid a carrot rust fly?
Oh, I've been hearing that you wait until later in the season.
Yeah.
I have planted my carrots already in May and June. Not a lot of sign of them coming up because they need warmth and they're slow to germinate. So I would say you wait until the end of June to plant to avoid the rust fly. But the thing is that once you have rust fly in the soil, it tends to persist for at least 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah, yeah, because the larval forms are in the soil. Yeah.
So, okay, well, there's that one.
And they're no fun. It's no fun. But there is something to know about this that I learned actually after my book came out in 2023, and that is that if you interplant carrots and onions in a staggered pattern, they protect each other.
Yeah.
The carrots repel the onion pest, the onions repel the carrot pest, and I've had great luck with that strategy in my own garden.
So carrots and onions, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Staggered pattern means you go boink, 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 and then in a triangle you go in the spaces, and then another row. You don't plant in rows. You plant in like a grid, like a honeycomb. And then in the spaces between the onions, because I'm planting the onion sets, the little babies, you plant, I plant a pelleted carrot seed. And then when they both come up, they're very happy growing as companion plants.
Any other companion plant recommendations to come to mind?
There's lots, and there is a chart that we have in our last newsletter of companion planting. I don't have it here. I could check it out and read to you. Give me a couple of minutes. By the way, let me talk about Food Producers Forum for a minute.
Yeah.
That's the nonprofit group that I helped start 6 years ago, and we're going strong. And one of the things we've done is completely revised our website. So our website is an online encyclopedia of gardening, and you go there and there's stuff about how to grow every kind of thing. It's under the How We Grow tab.
Oh, I love that.
And I recommend it to gardeners as, in some ways, even better than my book. So let me find some information at our website.
So I'm on this website now, right? Foodproducersforum.com, and then How We Grow, and it's got growing, foraging, fishing, hunting, livestock, the bookshelf, fit to eat, more. Cool.
Over 100 books listed on our gardening and seed thing pages. So let me go right to our newsletters, which is under the About Us tab, and look at the newsletters. Here we are. Bump. And pull up the one that, I lost him.
So as Dan's looking up that, I'll put up the numbers again too. So 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. You can text us, 709-327-8206, the signal at cbc.ca. It is Gardening Tuesday, folks, and Father's Day is coming. So if you've got stuff left to get in the ground, it is grow time. How's that coming along?
So it's good. So we put out this wonderful newsletter every month, chock full of information for gardeners and information about food and food security. And in the last issue, the very last piece was a companion planting chart. So I'm going to go to that chart now and see if I can find it. It's taken me to the website that we borrowed the chart from.
Cool.
Let me go back and see if I can do this.
Well, as you're still doing that, there's there's a text coming in too, like it's in process.
I will just say to people that you email us, foodproducersforum@gmail.com, ask for the companion planting chart.
Cool.
And I will send it to you.
And there's lots of great stuff there. Text just came in. I love blueberry picking. Let me see. Find me more Zen summer activity. What makes for a good blueberry season weather-wise, and should we expect a good season this year? What are where are you at with keeping track of the blueberry season? And yes, the comment, find me a more Zen summer activity, blueberry picking. You're bang on.
Oh, I agree. We live close to the Pooch Cove portion of the East Coast Trail. We go out the trail. We have our favorite spot up on top of the bluffs. Oh, there's nothing better than sitting in the sun, eating blueberries and pretending to put them in the container.
There's nothing more lonely than the hollow thud of a butter container or a margarine container at the beginning of blueberry picking, like the thud. I hated it as a kid. Because we'd get a tuning if we'd fill it, right?
Yeah.
So in the beginning, all that sounded to me was like there's more work to be done. And then once the thud will go away, you're getting closer to the tuning, which is also giving away how old I am. Because who cares about a toonie anymore? But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
So what makes for a good blueberry season? Well, the same thing that all plants love, rain and sun. And there have been years when it's been too dry, and there have been years when it's been too wet. I reckon this will be a good year for blueberries.
A Goldilocks year, as they say, just right.
Just right.
We've got Bob Fitzpatrick on the line calling from St. John's. Hello, hello.
Hi, Bob.
Good day. Thank you for taking my call. I'm late to the show today. I don't know who your guest is.
Dan Rubin is here all day.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, thank you for giving your time. I want to pick up again on the Japanese beetle.
Yeah. Yes,
yeah.
We had a terrible infestation last year, and it ate all the leaves on our beautiful Asian lilies.
Oh, wow.
So, and my wife was she went at it like I want to say she went like hands and eyes picking them off, and then we also tried the neem oil. Mm-hmm. So much for that. Now this year, what we noticed is that all of those lilies failed to come up through the ground.
Because they weren't fed last year because they lost their leaves, and you need the leaves to feed the bulb. Wow.
So that's why.
I'm so sad to hear that this pest has arrived in our province, because it will take a swing through a commercial production as well as home gardens. I know that the Department of Agriculture is aware of it, and they're developing strategies, but I'm not well informed about what you can do to prevent them.
But I know, and we did pick up another beautiful large pot of lilies with 4 stems in it, and before we had them out of the pot into the ground, the darn beetle was there.
Gee, wow.
Yeah, and my wife killed them all.
Oh, so boy. So sorry, you guys. It is terrible when you're looking forward to the beautiful blossoms, and lilies and daylilies are gorgeous, and they're also, the true lilies are also edible.
Yeah.
You can deep fry them, fill them with cheese, and deep fry them and make lilies rellenos.
There you go.
Mexican style food. But I wish I had better words for what to do now that they're here. But hopefully researchers with the department will help us figure that out.
So for all intents and purposes, they are here to stay, and our lilies are damned.
I guess so, but you know that all these critters go through life cycles, and I don't know if there's a pest that attacks them. I mean, part of the problem with invasive plants and organisms is where they came from. They might have had checks and balances, a pest, something that ate them or attacked them, whether it was a bacillus or another creature, and they arrive into the land where there's no enemy, and it can get fierce. Hopefully, some way will be found to discourage them. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your comments and your advice.
Yeah, thanks so much, Bob, for the call.
Yeah.
And folks, now there is up on the cbc.ca/NL website right now by my colleague Maddie Ryan. Beware the Japanese beetle. NL prepared to fight off invasive insect, says researcher. The beetle, as we're talking about, the beetle can eat and destroy about 300 plant species. So it's quite the muncher. And Dan, just to echo and to add to what you're saying there, here's directly from what we're getting from the Department of Fisheries, Forestry and Agriculture. So they're considering laying larvicide if it comes down to it, but they're looking at an eradication plan. And the advice is to capture any Japanese beetles in a jar and to call the Canadian Food Inspection Agency right away. Sightings can be sightings can be photographed and sent to the agency virtually through iNaturalist. So if any of this is speaking to you and you're curious about any of this, go to cbc.ca/NL, look for that story, read the full thing, and if you're capturing those little eating creatures, there's stuff you can do. And that's to help us try to figure out what to do.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the first step is, and the reason they want the photographs or the beetles in the jars is to map how far they've spread.
Yeah.
So that a plan can be made for trying to limit them or take them out. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Richard Whitaker's on the line from Portugal Cove. Hello, sir.
Yes, how are you? I'm in Holyrood at the moment.
You're always somewhere except for Portugal Cove lately.
Hi, Dick. How are you doing?
Things have to be done. Hi, Dan.
Yeah.
This is more a thing for discussion for you rather than other things. You know the problems we're having with all the fires and all that
Yes,
now.
Yeah.
And there's it's actually a national program called Fire Smart, where people are encouraged to alter their gardens around their houses to get clear of the very flammable trees and so forth within a reasonable distance and plant them with other things. And I think this is a good opportunity to, a reminder to get on with that. I've got to do it myself a bit more than I have. And there's no reason you can't plant fruit trees if you want to in place of them,
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, for that matter, anything like that. And also things like, although I'm getting a little more reluctant to encourage people to plant maple trees, even though they produce a nice amount of shade and all that kind of thing, but boy, do they ever self-seed. And I'm constantly going around pruning. I've got an area where I haven't paid attention for years. I'm going to have to root out an enormous amount of very large stumps. But anyway, these are opportunities, and at the same time, really consider establishing a riparian area along the road edge, because the road edge drains are part of the river systems. And, by planting, again, things like, they can be ornamental. It doesn't really matter. Anything that produces fairly deep roots and so on will pull the fertility out of the soil, because that's, a lot of houses, the land slopes to the road, and, of course, it drains to the road, and the lawn fertilizers end up in the drain. If your septic systems, that stuff ends up in the ditch. When I said drain, I meant ditch or whatever. And anything you can do to reduce that impact on your waterways is really, really important. So it's just, these kinds of plantings, Dan, there's all kinds of things you can do that are attractive, interesting, the wind shelters and all this sort of thing. So I'm going to leave it to you guys to talk about. Okay.
Thanks for the call, Mr. Whitaker. Can you stay on the line for a second? I'm going to get Arlette Lazarenko to get your email address, because I was looking for it, I couldn't find it, and I need to email you about that thing we were talking about for later.
Yeah, no sweat.
All right, thank you. Arlette will handle that. Thanks, Arlette.
For those who know the term permaculture, which is a way of thinking about landscape and integrating wild and tame and meeting human needs while meeting the health of the landscape as well. Swales, which are wide, shallow ditches, especially in the dry setting of Australia, where permaculture originally came. Swales, and we're not talking about whitecoats either. Is a key strategy for water retention, so that what you're doing as the water comes down the hill is you're capturing it in these generous, wide swales, which are ditches, and then keeping it there by planting things that, as Richard was saying, help conserve the water.
Couple of texts. Starlings are a menace for cherries. Too true. Should I prune back my 25-foot plus tree to fit a net? Also, more on permaculture gardening here in St. John's, please. Okay, so a request and also a question.
I have 3 cherry trees that I planted. They're the 2 right beside my greenhouse are up, 40 feet. And I'm looking at the upper branches thinking I should cut those. And I have a smaller tree that's remained kind of semi-dwarf. And I'm looking at it and thinking this year, because I want some of those cherries, I'm going to trim the upper branches. I would say, yes, you can do that. Anytime you're cutting or trimming a branch on a fruit tree, there's not much you can do about the black knot in the plums and the cherries, although if you prune that out consistently, you can get very healthy trees. The black knot will still show up, prune it out, but anytime you prune, you have to sterilize your pruning tools with alcohol or bleach, because otherwise there's a chance of passing on something called fire blight, and that can actually kill the trees. But yes, prune your upper branches, and then I'm going to hang a net over the smallest tree this year.
And more on, they asked for more permaculture gardening here in St. John's.
Okay, so a little bit more in depth about permaculture. Bill Mollison and his partner, whose name I should remember because they were equals in developing that way of thinking about landscape. In Australia, it's made its way around the world, and the notion is that we're the brains of the garden, and we design the garden so the garden can become self-maintaining. How do you do that? Well, you combine different plants together, some of which feed you, some of which feed the birds. And so the highest evolution of that concept is something called the food forest, where you have tall trees that provide shade and maybe fruit, and then beneath that you have shrubs, and beneath the shrubs you have ground plants and tubers and flowers, and everything kind of harmonizes together. And there is a food forest in Portugal called Foggy Acres to know about. There is a training center being developed for permaculture gardening on Mount Sayo by Laurie Heath and a group called Common Ground Community Development. And if you're interested in that, you can help them, you can volunteer. And Laurie is trained as a permaculture trainer. And then there are people like Kingfisher Farm in Gambo, where Nathan Gidge and Samantha are producing food in the property that they bought, and they intentionally selected a gravel pit. Yeah, and they're growing beautiful vegetables there by building soil from scratch. And Nathan is a permaculture trainer as well. So we do have the expertise here. There are other farms, and places, including my own garden, that are now applying permaculture to everything that we grow and how we treat soil and that. So much to learn. But it's a very exciting journey to be on.
Yeah. Well, the more you know, the more you can grow.
You need to let the garden talk to you. That's why I have a chapter in my book called The Power of Puttering.
See? There you go. A couple more. The texts and emails are coming in today, I tell you. Let me see. Email. Hello. I have a rhubarb strawberry patch in our yard in St. John's, and it's filled with red ants. Is there anything you can do to get rid of red ants that's safe to apply near the plants, or should I just leave them? That's from Mary.
The red ants are a drag because they bite, and their bite is painful.
Yeah, less than fun, yeah.
Less than fun, yes. And so getting rid of them, I've heard of people mixing borax and sugar and poisoning them. But the problem with that whole approach, that kill, kill, kill approach to your garden, is that there is a reason that those ants are there. They are doing something not just for themselves, but for the whole soil ecosystem. So unless they were actively attacking you when you pick your rhubarb or something, or grow your strawberries, my tendency would be to leave them there and then maybe control them by clearing the area around the patch. Yeah. And that's where you would want to apply things like manure and compost to feed the rhubarb, because rhubarb's a heavy feeder. It needs lots of nitrogen. We've talked about the best way to do that. We won't talk about that today. But how to provide nitrogen to your rhubarb plants.
We are all just filtration systems.
We are walking nitrogen producers, folks.
That's
right. We just need to dilute it a little bit so we don't burn our plants. But back to the question of the red ants. My only advice is that there are ways to get rid of them. Ant traps, borax and sugar. But just think twice about this in terms of why they're there and the benefits that they're providing in terms of aerating the soil more than anything else, because they make their nests in the ground.
And this can come to the cycle conversation too, right?
Yeah.
Just because they're there this year, they may not be next year. As well.
I would be interested to know from this person, maybe you can even text back, how long have you noticed the red ants being there?
Okay.
Are they a new arrival? Because it'd be interesting to track this and see when they come and how long they stay. If they're there year after year after year, you may end up having to do something about them.
Don from Salmon Cove got in touch with us. I agree with your guest. We can grow lots of stuff. I get about several bushes of apples, garlic doing well, harvested rhubarb, cakes, pickles. Oh, nice. Rhubarb is full of goods, especially vitamin K1. It helps with blood clotting, strengthens bones. Question. Now, here we go, Dan. You might have to give away a trade secret to this one. How does your guest make rhubarb wine? Great show, by the way, Don.
I love telling people about this because it's so darn easy. So here's the recipe. Get ready to write this down.
And if you can't write it down in time, we put the show up on YouTube and we podcast it, so you can always just go and there's 10 minutes left to the show, so this is the point to remember for Dan's rhubarb wine recipe. Here it is, folks.
Okay, it's really quick and really simple. And again, if you email me at foodproducersforum.com with any question, I always respond. foodproducersforum@gmail.com. Okay, rhubarb. You harvest 15 pounds of rhubarb stalks. You cut off the leaves and you break them off of the bases. You bring those rhubarb stalks inside the house. You chop them up into thumb-size chunks. You put those 15 pounds of rhubarb chunks in your primary fermenter. That's a big plastic barrel in my case. And you pour on top of them 3 2-kilogram sacks of sugar. So you put 6 kilograms of sugar on top of the rhubarb, and you let that sit overnight or for 2 or 3 days. And the sugar extracts the juice and the flavor and the color from the rhubarb. And then you dip the rhubarb chunks out of there. They're washed in that syrup. You bag those up, you put them in a freezer, and you save them for pies. It's double duty.
Cool.
And then you end up with the rhubarb syrup in the bottom. And you add 5 gallons of water. Okay, I'll go over this again. 15 pounds of rhubarb, 6 kilograms of sugar, 5 gallons of water, whatever nutrient you want for your yeast in there, maybe some pectic enzyme to clarify it, and then some 1118 yeast sprinkled on the top, and Bob's your uncle. They begin to ferment. And after about a week or two, you rack that, you siphon that into a carboy with this fermentation lock, and it goes to town. So the ingredients are 15 pounds of rhubarb, 6 kilograms of sugar, 5 gallons of water, some nutrient matter for the yeast, and yeast. That's all you need.
How long does it take to bottle? Like how long before you bottle it off with the end of this process?
My rhubarb in a cool basement in the summer usually takes at least 2 months to bubble and finish, and then it's racked to a fresh carboy and it clarifies. And once it's crystal clear, I bottle it, and it's fruit wine, so it'll keep for up to 5-6 years. But it's about a 2-month process. But once it's started, your only job is to siphon it occasionally.
Yeah, and you're not filtering it because it clarifies, right? So you don't get a filter. Okay.
Now, there's some people do filter their wine. I don't, because I provide the right conditions for it to clarify. I sometimes use sparkleoid. It's a clarifying agent if I have to. But It's so easy.
And you ever put, like, you've mentioned some combinations with you, like your black
currant, and black and gooseberries.
And gooseberry. Do you put like strawberry sometimes in with your rhubarb at all for like a blush type of a thing going on?
Yeah, anybody who wants to give me 10 or 15 pounds of strawberries, I'd be happy to do that. I have a neighbor who gave me an entire season's worth of frozen blueberries. I made some beautiful blueberry wine. But the combinations are great because some of these things have a kind of tartness to it.
Yeah.
Like the gooseberries and the blueberries help balance that, or the gooseberries and the black currants. Great combinations. Apple wine.
That's nice.
Crab apple wine, grape wine.
What do you know? Like, so what's the rough alcohol content that you get out from this for wine in the end?
It's great. It does the job. I mean, we've traveled in Italy, my wife and son and I, many years ago. And you come back from that experience and you have a kind of European thing that you do. You light the candles and you open the wine and you sit down on a Friday night. And
it's great.
It's a lovely thing. We go through a lot of wine that way.
Hey, you only live once. And
that's right.
Life is to be savored.
This is great. I really appreciate the chance to chat with people this way.
So folks, I love the questions, right? The range on the show from ornamentals to rhubarb wine to you name it, right? Red ants, like it's all the discussion of growing, of experiencing, of what we like, from permaculture to food stuff, like all of it is a great conversation. I appreciate it for Newfoundland and Labrador, right? It's something I every Tuesday in the grow season I look forward to, because it's a community type of a discussion, and every single question or comment is valued.
As I said earlier in the show, what I've really learned more than anything else is about the fact that the garden is a community, and I am part of a community of growers and learners. It is so wonderful the way it brings people together. And you asked at the beginning of the show what I was excited about harvesting. I'm already harvesting basil and drying it. Like, herbs are so neat that they come up every year. Many of them are perennials. So I have oregano almost ready to harvest. I have chives. I have French sorrel. And I have the basil in the greenhouse that I'm already plucking leaves off to get it to branch out. And those leaves get dried in a basket in the kitchen, and then I put them in the jar labeled basil.
We have some lemon thyme coming up, which is very enjoyable.
I grow large amounts of lemon balm, and I just recently learned that Richter's is a great place to get herbs and plants and seeds, has lime balm. I got to try that.
Do you ever cook with lemon salt? My wife made lemon salt.
No,
we found a jar in the fridge that's been there for like a couple of years. So because it's just lemons and salt, and you let that do its thing.
Yeah.
And
is it the rind or the juice, or?
I think it was the rind.
Yeah,
was what
the rind.
Was being used,
it's
right?
like you make limoncello if you're Italian.
Yeah, and this is salt for like savory cooking. And so I actually did tuna steaks the other day and put the lemon salt over it and grilled them. Spectacular.
Well, I'm headed home as soon as I leave the studio to host a barbecue for the board of the group that I'm about to resign from. And I've got the barbecue queued up, and I'm going to make a green salad from all the stuff in the garden. And it's looking like it'll be a bearable day to do that.
This is for barbecuing. Today looks nice, and I'm looking like here on the Parkway in St. John's. Oftentimes, right, we look out. There are times when I can't even see the trees in front of CBC, but today, not only are they there, leaves out. The leaves don't appear to be moving that much either, which is a good sign for barbecuing. Not too windy, good temp out there. Great for summer salad. Great to put stuff on the grill. What a day.
Yep, and I'm so lucky. I've got the fish heads have been buried many months ago.
Yep.
The garlic has been planted last fall. The garlic is just like going to town, and we've ended up like from last year. We have more garlic than we even could use in a year.
Right.
So I've been giving it away to neighbors.
That's nice.
Knocking on their doors saying, "Do you have any vampires here?"
You can and. We cook with so much garlic. I love it. Garlic is just.
When we were traveling
it in a pan and grilling it or frying it, it is perfect.
When we were traveling in Italy in 2008, I love this story. We were out on the Lido Island in Venice Lagoon, and the owner of the bed and breakfast had no supper for us, so it sent us down the road. We walk into Il Barco restaurant. There's seating for 200 people, and the waiters look at us and they say, "What are you doing here? It's 7:30. Nobody has, And so they give us the young waiter, and he takes us down. He offers us the menu, and I go, "You decide. You tell us what we should eat." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And he goes away, and he comes back with the antipasto, and he puts down the plate of cheese and peppers, and then he stands back and he folds his arm and he waits while we taste. And he asks me, he says, "Is this good?" And I have my little bit of Italian. I say, "È molto bene." It's really good. And he shouts down the length of the restaurant to the other servers who were standing in a group, "They like it." And it changed my whole attitude toward garden and food in that moment, because it's like a wealth that we share with our family and our community.
And with that, we're out of time. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Adam.
All right, folks, that's it for another gardening day here on The Signal. Anytime you want to get in touch with us, thesignal@cbc.ca. Tomorrow on the show, we're talking to writers and artists in the new issue of Newfoundland Quarterly. The theme for the new issue is Earth, from physical earth of harvesting and mining to the emotional, the home. Tune in tomorrow where we dig in and unearth things.